What's the scariest thing about the middle of nowhere? The silence? Or the fact that no one would hear you if something went wrong? For me, it's not the silence. It's realizing you're not as alone as you think. One night out there, I learned the hard way. Something was watching me. And once you feel that, you'll never look at the dark the same again. And the truly terrifying question, when you're deep in the middle of nowhere, how do you know if you're the hunter or the prey? Tonight, we're diving into true middle-of-nowhere horror stories that actually happened. So stick close and keep watching till the end to find out what happened before it was too late. But before we start, make sure to subscribe or follow so you never miss any new chilling releases. If you're enjoying the content, hit like, drop a comment, and share this video. Let's see how many of you truly love this kind of episodes. Now here's your challenge. One of the stories you're about to hear might not be real. It could be completely made up, or maybe all of them are true. Watch till the end, try to spot the fake, and leave your guess in the comments. And as for last episode's fake story, it was story number 1. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And now, let's dive into the darkness together. I don't usually tell this story, because every time I think back on it, I still get a knot in my stomach. But I figure maybe putting it down in words might finally put some distance between me and what happened out in the woods of East Texas during the spring of 1997. Back then, I was in college, and one of my closest buddies had a dad who owned about 800 acres of thick, forested land. It was a massive property, dense with pine and oak, intersected with a couple dirt roads and an old pond that hunters used to swear was good for fishing. His dad used to lease the land out for hunting and paper companies, but by the time we were in school, he'd built a small cabin out there and mostly just let it sit. My friend had permission to bring people out whenever, so for us, it became a kind of escape. When spring break rolled around, we decided to spend the week there. The plan was simple: drink, shoot guns, fish, and blow off some steam. There were 5 of us, all crammed into 2 trucks, hauling way too much beer and junk food. It was the kind of trip only 20-year-olds think makes sense. The first day was uneventful, hauling gear into the cabin, sweeping out dust and cobwebs, getting a fire going. That night we cooked steaks over the fire pit, got loud, and passed around a couple joints. Typical redneck camping stuff, I guess. By the time midnight rolled around, the fire was dying down, and I was in that hazy state between tipsy and half-baked. That's when I heard something moving outside. At first it was just a faint shuffle, like boots scuffing against dirt. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped out onto the porch. The fire had burned down low, just embers glowing faintly, and beyond it, the woods swallowed everything in black. I squinted, trying to focus, and swear to God, I saw someone standing just outside the ring of firelight. A man. He wasn't moving, just standing there, facing me, maybe 10 yards away. I blinked hard, convinced it was the alcohol messing with me. But when I opened my eyes, the shape was still there. Still, silent, watching. I was debating whether to yell out when one of my friends behind me said, "What the hell are you doing out here?" His voice broke the spell. I spun around, muttered something about hearing a noise, and when I looked back, the figure was gone. My buddy laughed and called me stoned out of my mind. I laughed too, pretending it was nothing, but inside I wasn't so sure. The next day we didn't talk about it. We fished at the pond, shot rifles at cans, wasted hours doing nothing. By nightfall, we were back around the fire, beers cracked open again. At one point I wandered off to take a leak, and as I stood there, I heard the snap of a branch way too close for comfort. I zipped up and hustled back to the fire. My friends laughed when they saw the look on my face, telling me I was just spooked by raccoons or deer. I wanted to believe them. But later that night, I saw him again. We were sitting around the fire, one guy telling some long-winded story, when I turned to look at another buddy standing next to me. And there, no more than 3 steps behind him, was a man. He wasn't one of us. He had a scraggly, unkempt beard, long hair, and this blank, emotionless stare. He wasn't moving, just standing there, eyes locked on the back of my friend's head. I froze. It was like every muscle in my body locked up at once. Eventually, the man's eyes flicked toward me. For several seconds, he held my gaze. Then, without a word, he turned and walked back into the woods. I shot up, pointing and stammering, trying to get my friends to understand what I had just seen. They laughed, teased me, said I'd had too much to drink. One even joked it was Bigfoot. But I knew what I saw. He was real. For the rest of the trip, I couldn't relax. Every time we went out to hunt or fish, I scanned the tree line, half expecting him to appear again. But 2 days passed with nothing unusual. I started to wonder if maybe I really was losing it. Then came the gunfire. We'd gone out looking for hogs with rifles. We tracked a group for a while, finally spotted 3 of them rooting around. Just as we lined up our shots, a rifle cracked from somewhere in the trees. Bark exploded from a tree inches above my buddy's head. Another shot followed, closer. We didn't wait for a third. We bolted, sprinting down a trail back toward the cabin. The shots stopped as suddenly as they'd started. When we reached the cabin, though, more bullets tore through the trees, one slamming into the siding, another punching through my friend's windshield. We didn't even think. We piled into my truck and tore down the dirt road until we hit pavement. It was the late 90s, so no one had a cell phone on them. We had to drive 20 miles into town before we found help. When the deputies came back with us hours later, the shooter was gone. The cabin had holes in the walls. Our gear had been dragged out and scattered across the yard. Nothing stolen except a box of 30-30 rounds, my sleeping bag, and my wool blanket. The deputies figured it was a squatter or a poacher who'd been living out there. But when I described the man I'd seen, long beard, blank stare, they stopped smiling. They searched the property for a week. Nothing. Just a few abandoned campsites and signs someone had been squatting there for a while. We never went back. My friend's dad eventually leased the land again to paper companies, and the cabin fell into disuse. Every so often I talk to the same college buddy about it, and he says no one ever identified the man. Whoever he was, he just disappeared into the woods. But what eats at me isn't that we never caught him. It's the way he singled out my friend, staring at the back of his head like he was deciding something. And I can't help but wonder, if we hadn't left when we did, would he have finished whatever it was he started? This is the first time I've ever told anyone this story, and honestly, I've debated for years if I should. Part of me still questions whether what I experienced actually happened, or if my brain just broke for a while that night. Either way, it left me shaken in a way I can't explain, and to this day, I avoid that stretch of highway entirely. Back in 2008, I was driving cross-country from Oklahoma to Louisiana after visiting family. It was late, maybe close to midnight, and I was somewhere along an old highway in East Texas. The kind of road where you can drive for an hour without seeing another car, just pines crowding both sides, the yellow lines fading in and out from years of neglect. At some point, I missed my exit. I realized too late when the road curved sharp and I didn't recognize any of the markers my uncle had told me about. Instead of turning back right away, I figured I'd keep going until I found a spot to turn around. That was mistake number 1. After a few more miles, I saw a side road, narrow, cracked asphalt with a faded green sign that had been so weather-beaten I couldn't read it. My GPS had already lost service, so I took the turn thinking it might connect back to the main road. That was mistake number 2. The further I drove, the stranger it got. The road narrowed into almost nothing, weeds pushing through the pavement. No streetlights, no houses, just silence. Eventually, I came up on what looked like an abandoned town, or what was left of one. There were maybe half a dozen buildings, sagging under their own weight, windows busted out, signs so faded you couldn't make out the lettering. An old gas station sat at the corner with rusted pumps and a broken canopy, the kind of place that looked like it had been dead since the 70s. I slowed the car, headlights sweeping across cracked sidewalks and hollow storefronts. And that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The buildings weren't empty. Through the windows, I could swear I saw shadows moving. Shapes, quick and darting, like someone was walking just out of sight. But when I stopped to really look, nothing was there, just broken glass and dust. I told myself it was my imagination. I was exhausted, running on gas station coffee and beef jerky. But then I realized something else. Every time I tried to leave the town, the road just looped me back to the center. I'd drive past the gas station, past the sagging diner, then hit a curve and end up right where I started. Again and again. I tried 3 times, 4 times. Same thing. It was like the town wouldn't let me leave. The longer I stayed, the stranger it became. Street signs I hadn't noticed before suddenly appeared. A stoplight at the intersection flickered, though the wires above it were long dead. Once, I heard the faint sound of music, an old piano tune, drifting from the diner, even though its roof had collapsed years ago. At one point, I thought I saw a figure standing in the middle of the road ahead of me. Tall, unmoving, its outline blurred in my headlights. My heart hammered, but when I blinked, it was gone. I tried to shake it off, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. I just needed to find a way out. But no matter what I did, turn left, right, reverse, it always dumped me back in the center of that godforsaken place. And then I saw it. I don't even know how to describe it. It wasn't human, but it had the shape of one, too tall, limbs too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its body seemed to shimmer, like heat waves rising off asphalt, but darker, denser. My headlights barely touched it, like the light itself refused to land on it. It didn't move. It didn't speak. But I knew it was aware of me. The moment I locked eyes, if you could call them eyes, with it, my chest tightened like I couldn't breathe. My vision tunneled, and this overwhelming wave of dread rolled over me, heavier than anything I've ever felt. I don't remember what happened after that. The next thing I knew, I was slumped over the steering wheel. My car was parked on the shoulder of the main highway, headlights still on, engine idling. I checked the clock. It was nearly 2 hours later than the last time I remembered. No sign of the abandoned town. No sign of looping roads. Just highway stretching in both directions. To this day, I don't know if it was a hallucination brought on by fatigue, some kind of night terror, or something genuinely unexplainable. But I've never forgotten how real it felt. How that thing's presence crushed me like a weight I couldn't escape. Sometimes, when I'm driving at night and catch a glimpse of something in the corner of my headlights, I feel my chest tighten again, just like it did back then. And I can't help but wonder, did I really escape that place, or did it just let me go? Back in 2008, I lived in one of those forgotten pockets of the Scottish Highlands. The kind of place you won't find unless you're looking for it. Tucked miles off the main roads, surrounded by nothing but pine, heather, and mountains that swallow you whole. The settlement was tiny, just a scatter of old workmen's chalets left behind after some project in the 1940s. A few families lived there year-round, but most of the time, it felt like the end of the earth. I moved there because I couldn't afford much else. Rent was cheap, and I thought isolation might be peaceful. At first it was. The silence of the glen was almost overwhelming, but you get used to it. Nights stretched long and starless. Mornings came with mist so thick it felt like you were stepping into another world. But the quiet wasn't empty. That's something I only realized after a few weeks. It started with glimpses. Out of the corner of my eye, I'd catch the shape of someone standing at the tree line or leaning against the side of a chalet. Always when I looked properly, there was nothing there. I brushed it off. When you're surrounded by fog and forest, your brain fills in the blanks. That's what I told myself. One night I was sitting on the small porch out front, smoking, when I noticed movement across the gravel road. A figure. Just standing there, maybe 20 feet away. No features. Just blacker than the dark behind it. I froze, blinked, and it was gone. After that, I started seeing them more. Reflections in windows when I knew I was alone. A shape slipping between chalets when there shouldn't have been anyone outside. Once, I was walking back from a neighbor's place, and I swore I saw someone crawling underneath a parked car. Thin, too thin, moving wrong. But when I crouched to check, nothing was there. I tried talking to people about it. My closest neighbor, an older guy who'd been there his whole life, just gave me a look I'll never forget. He didn't laugh, didn't call me mad. He just said, "Don't pay them mind. They don't like attention," and that was it. That should have been my sign to leave. But moving isn't easy when you've got no money and nowhere else to go. So I stayed. Things got worse. Nights became unbearable. I'd wake up with the sense that someone was standing in the room with me, not moving, just watching. I'd lie there, frozen, straining my eyes against the dark, certain I'd see that shape in the corner. Sometimes I did. Shoulders, a head. Once, closer, right at the foot of the bed. But the worst part wasn't what I saw. It was how it made me feel. They weren't just shadows. They carried something with them, a pressure, like the air was thickening around me, pushing me down into myself. I stopped sleeping properly, stopped eating. Every time I stepped outside, I felt exposed, like I'd walked into the center of a circle of eyes. I tried rationalizing it. Stress, loneliness, isolation. But there's a difference between your imagination and presence. Presence has weight. It clings to you. One night, everything broke. I woke around 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate. My door didn't lock properly, so I sat up in bed, heart pounding, waiting for it to open. It didn't. Instead, I heard pacing, circling the chalet. Gravel crunching, boards creaking. Then silence. I stayed awake until dawn. When I finally opened the front door, I saw it. Bare footprints in the frost, circling the house. Bare. In the dead of winter. That was when I knew I couldn't stay. Within a month, I found a way out, scraped together enough to move to a cheap flat closer to the coast. I left most of my things behind. Didn't matter. It's been years since, but I haven't shaken it. Every so often, I'll wake up at night with that same pressure in the room. Not strong, not like before, but enough to make my skin crawl. And I still don't know what they were. Spirits? Something tied to the land? Hallucinations from isolation? All I know is they were real enough to change me. People romanticize isolation like it's peaceful, healing. But when you're too far from the rest of the world, you learn quickly that silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's full of things you're not supposed to notice. And if you ever find yourself in a glen like that, where the air feels heavy and the shadows seem thicker than they should be, don't stay too long. Because once those things know you can see them, they won't look away. If you've made it to the end of this video, let me know in the comments which story creeped you out the most, and if you could survive only one of them, which one would it be? Don't forget to drop your guess. Which story do you think was the fake one? Also, if you enjoyed the episode, hit super thanks if you're on YouTube, or send us some stars if you're on Facebook to show some love and make your comments stand out. Want to go next level? Get early access to upcoming episodes, exclusive members-only content, and much more by joining our YouTube membership or becoming a Patreon supporter. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's waiting there for you. Don't forget to like, share, and catch up on our previous episodes. And now, stay tuned for the next horror episode.